Reborn into the magical world of Harry Potter, carrying a duel can randomly obtain the opponent's ability panel. Dueling with Malfoy earns noble etiquette. Dueling with Harry to obtain a snake-like vibe. Dueling with monsters to gain monster power. Dueling with Quirrell to obtain Voldemort's unique magic. Duel with various wizards and magical animals to gain magical and powerful abilities. Beat the little wizard, reshape the savior, and collect the wool of the mysterious man. In this magical world, far more dangerous and powerful than in memory, Sean dueled all the way to the top of the wizard. PS1. Intelligence Online, slightly dark towards PS2. The world's magic limit has been increased PS3. Golden Finger only serves the plot keywords of the novel. Days of Dueling at Hogwarts with no pop-ups. Download the complete TXT collection of Days of Dueling at Hogwarts, and read the latest chapter of Days of Dueling at Hogwarts. Chapter 1. Bertrand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Bertrand. Sean looked at the shattered desk in front of him, looking somewhat bewildered at his parents standing at the door. If he had not misread, at this moment, besides the astonishment at the accident, there was also a hint of inexplicable envy and ecstasy on his parents' faces. What situation is this? Could it be that their husband and wife have been looking down on my desk for a long time? How could you have such a deep hatred towards my desk? Wait, how did this table break? Sean had seen Harry Potter in his past life, but he never expected that he had traveled once and actually traveled into the world of Harry Potter. In the first 10 years of his travels, Sean not only complained about why he traveled to the UK, but also prepared to enter a private school to prepare for his return to China. He even planned to go to Hong Kong to work in the entertainment industry after returning to China, relying on his past knowledge and foresight to become a big shot in the entertainment industry. The result now tells him that this world is Harry Potter's world, and upon closer calculation, it happens to be the same age as Harry Potter's enrollment. This old-fashioned template, the danger rises sharply. Sean, sitting on the sofa, holding a cup of hot milk, temporarily stopped endless roast. If he had a choice, Sean would choose not to enter the wizarding world and continue to follow his planned life. However, there is a thing called silence in this world, and Sean cannot remember the specific details. He only remembers that if children with magic do not receive reasonable guidance, they may give birth to this unreasonable thing, and the power of rampage will eventually harm himself. Although Sean thinks he is unlikely to give birth to silence, for the sake of his life, even if there is only a 1 in a billion chance, Sean dare not gamble. Moreover, Sean's parents clearly hope that he can enter the wizarding world, especially when both of them are squibs expelled by their respective families. Having a magical child not only makes them slightly proud, but also allows them to be re-accepted by their own families. This should be the PUA of the pure blood family towards the mute canon members. Looking up at Dad, who came back from hanging up the phone, Sean spoke up and asked, "Dad, does the wizard also use the phone?" Upon hearing the words of his own magical genius son, Yad, who had already liked him very much, immediately replied, "There is no need for a phone on the family side. Magicians usually use owls or fireplaces to communicate, and the phone is the contact information of the peripheral members of the family. We need to contact the family through the peripheral members. It's not even possible to directly contact the family with a mute canon." Sean's senses towards this family became increasingly cold. Dad contacted the family, but Mom did not take any action. Sean was not surprised by this. Prior to this, Sean had already known that Mom had no relatives, and his grandfather and grandmother had passed away unexpectedly many years ago. Now it seems that this time point is likely to have passed away during the period when the noseless monster caused trouble. Muggle-born wizards were targeted by noseless monsters and Death Eaters at that time. Of course, these were Sean's speculations, and he didn't ask his mother specifically. After all, this kind of thing is essentially exposing scars, and asking is meaningless. Pick up the cup in your hand, the temperature of the milk is already palatable. Drinking in small sips, when the milk in the cup bottomed out, the door of the house was also knocked on. Dad looked a bit excited and immediately got up to open the door. As the sound of the door rang, Sean's father carefully accompanied three middle-aged and elderly men and women in long robes into the room. Among them, the old man standing in the middle ignored his father who wanted to say something and his mother who greeted them, and looked straight at Sean sitting on the sofa. This scene completely dispelled Sean's curiosity about this so-called family and the only trace of affection stemming from blood. "Are you Sean?" "Sean Bird." Putting down the cup in his hand, for Sean, whether he likes them or not, he absolutely cannot do anything impolite to embarrass his parents by being poked on the spine. Face is earned back. To earn back the face that should belong to his parents, let's start from now on. Standing up from the sofa, Sean looked at the other person and bowed slightly, saying, "I am Sean Bird, the son of Yed Bird and Martha Carter." As soon as Sean finished speaking, the chubby middle-aged man standing behind the old man chuckled softly, "Ah, the coachman." The surname Carter also means carriage driver. Normally, this is not a problem, but speaking it out in the other person's mouth carries a sense of disdain for her low status. Martha herself came from a Muggle wizard family, but ended up being a mute. For these pure-blooded individuals who claim to be born and noble, Martha's background can be said to be extremely low, and even to some extent, inferior to a Muggle. Upon seeing this scene, Sean's face darkened. Politeness was considered polite, but if he insulted his mother, politeness was unnecessary. However, before Sean could speak, the old man snorted coldly and said seriously to the chubby middle-aged man, "Quirrell, you are too impolite. You seem to have forgotten all the etiquette I taught you since I was young. When you go back, copy the family etiquette for me until I am satisfied." The authority of the old man is unshakable. Even though the slightly chubby middle-aged Quirrell didn't feel any problem with his words and actions just now, he still lowered his head to his father and quietly agreed to his punishment. After punishing his youngest son, the old man turned to look at Sean and said, "Are you satisfied with this punishment?" For a moment, Sean looked at the old man strangely. He couldn't see through the other person, but couldn't. At this moment, he immediately responded by nodding slightly and saying, "Thank you very much. My name is Gavin Bird, the father of Yad and Quirrell. From now on, let's call me my grandfather directly." At this point, the old man Gavin took out a badge and a gold ticket from his body and approached Sean, gesturing for Sean to reach out and put them in his hand. At this point, Gavin said again, "These are the family emblem and scholarship. If your father is a wizard, then you can enjoy more family privileges. Unfortunately, your father is a mute canon, and the family has already expelled your father. Therefore, your treatment can only be treated according to the children of peripheral members who have magical talents. This is a family rule, not personal. I hope you can understand what I mean." Looking at the things in his hand, Sean nodded slightly and said, "I understand that a family must abide by its rules, otherwise the family will not last long. But these things are given to me by the family. So, as my grandfather, what are you planning to give me?" As soon as these words were spoken, Yad and Martha's faces immediately showed a look of fear and concern, while Quirrell's face showed a look of disdain and ridicule. However, due to his father's punishment just now, Quirrell suppressed his desire to speak up and mock. Gavin looked at the child in front of him. He was only 10 years old, but he had an unexpected maturity. He was calm and composed, which was rare among children of this age. Looking at him, Gavin suddenly felt like he had seen his youthful self, equally mature and steady. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, and Gavin slowly crouched down. Under the surprised gaze of Quirrell and the other middle-aged woman, he looked at his grandson, whom he had not had much contact with before, and said, "I like smart children. As a reward, I have 3 things here, you can choose any one of them. This is a gift my grandfather gave you in advance for school. Newcomers, new books, and seedlings need everyone's protection. We hope everyone can support us." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Upgrading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Upgrading. Gavin slowly opened his hands, and 3 small eddies appeared between them, each transformed into an old notebook, a pure white pocket watch, and a pure gold badge. Sean noticed the pure gold badge, which was similar to the one Gavin had given him earlier, with only a few differences in material and subtle details. Can you tell me what these 3 things are? Gavin looked at Sean and said, "It's up to you to make your own judgment. If you don't know what they are, then choose according to your own feelings. Sometimes, a wizard's feelings can point them in the right direction." Feeling. With a murmur, Sean reached out to touch those 3 things. At this moment, Quirrell's face looked slightly unpleasant as he spoke. "Father, hasn't the pure white pocket watch already been promised to be left to Millicent? How can it be given to this mute son?" Gavin's face flashed with dissatisfaction. He didn't say anything or express anything, just looked at Sean and said, "Choose one, choose according to your feelings." "Father, Millicent. Get out of here." With Gavin's sudden outburst, the lights in the room suddenly flickered, and the windows and doors of the room opened simultaneously. A flickering light and electric current accompanied the sound, and a gust of wind suddenly swept up the house, turning Quirrell into a vortex and driving them out of Sean's house. The eyelids drooped slightly, and the vision inside the house returned to its original state after Gavin restrained his emotions. The lights returned to their original state, and the windows and doors inside the house were also closed again. From what had just happened, Ed and Martha's faces turned pale, clearly frightened. Sean was also greatly surprised by Gavin's reaction just now. He looked at Gavin, whose face had returned to calm, and swallowed his saliva invisibly. Is this really the world of Harry Potter? It seems, probably, and seems to be somewhat different from the wizards who wield short sticks and stand on stakes to output in my impression. Sean, don't be afraid, choose what you want. Gavin asked Sean to make a choice for the 3rd time, and Sean didn't hesitate. He reached out and lightly touched the 3 things in front of him, his fingers brushing over the golden badge and white pocket watch one by one, and finally stopped at the old notebook. Sean looked at the notes, perhaps feeling guilty, or perhaps influenced by the plot of Harry Potter's acquisition of Snape's notes in the original work. He felt that the notes were more appealing to him. Seizing the note, in that moment, both the pocket watch and badge disappeared into Gavin's hand. Gavin stood up with no hint of joy or anger on his face, but calmly looked at Sean and said, "In another month or 2, the owl at Hogwarts will arrive. Then you should follow the instructions in the letter and enroll normally. Before that, I want to give you a few words. Although you did not grow up at the Bertrand estate since childhood, since your surname is Bertrand and you have also entered Hogwarts, you must understand that every word and action you take at Hogwarts will represent the Bertrand family. I'm not saying these things to make you follow the rules or become a qualified pure-blood aristocrat. Even if I ask you, you may not be able to do it. Therefore, my only requirement is not to embarrass the Bertrand family. This is my only requirement for you. Can you do it? Don't lose face. What do you mean? Don't cheat on exams, or be serious in class, or don't fight or cause trouble." When he said these words, Sean had already made up his mind. If Gavin's so-called necessary shame really limits a lot, then he just returned all the things he collected, and there was no need to cause trouble for himself just for something, limiting himself. Gavin looked at Sean as if he had seen through his thoughts, shook his head slightly, and said, "I don't care about these trivial things. You can cheat, but you can't be detected. You can be distracted in class, but you must pass the exam. You can fight, even fight with others, but you must win. Do you understand?" Sean raised his eyebrows lightly and suddenly grinned, saying, "I understand. That's good, then I'm looking forward to your performance in the 1st semester." At this point, Gavin turned around and walked to the front door of the house. Before leaving, he turned to Yad and said, "If there is anything about Sean in the future, you can use an owl to communicate with us. Also, your mother actually misses you a lot, so write to her frequently. Yad heard Gavin mention his mother, and his eyes turned slightly red. He nodded lightly and stopped talking. At this point, Gavin stopped lingering and turned around to leave Sean's house with the middle-aged female wizard. As he watched his father leave, Yad's face finally showed a joyful expression. He picked up Sean and, despite Sean's protests, kissed him more than 10 times in a row. Martha kept slapping Yad and jokingly scolding her husband for being too serious and unstable, showing such a side in front of the child. For the rest of the day, the Sean family was in a joyful atmosphere. Even when they were sleeping at night, Ed and Martha chatted in bed for a long time before gradually falling asleep. If they didn't have to work the next day, they might have had a long conversation all night. Sean closed the door and lay in bed, looking out the window at the starry sky. Today's events really overwhelmed him, and his brain was still in a state of overclocking. It took him a long time to slowly feel a bit sleepy. Just as Sean was about to fall asleep, he suddenly thought of something and opened his eyes again, sitting up. On his first day in this world, Sean discovered a unique interface in his mind, through which he could intuitively see his various skills. At the same time, Sean could earn points through exam competition, which could help him improve his skills. This is also why Sean is confident in being admitted to a private school. In the past, Sean's skills were probably math, literature, music, and so on. Now that Sean has awakened to the power of magic, he wants to see if his panel can bring him surprises. However, when Sean opened the panel as usual, what appeared in front of him was not the panel that had been used for 10 years, but a notification. Due to special reasons, the system will be upgraded and the time is uncertain. Please be patient and wait. Tisk, it's really disappointing. Sleep. Lying back in bed, Sean closed his eyes. Although the notice did not specify the reason for the system upgrade, Sean was well aware that it was likely due to his own sudden awakening of magical power. That's why Sean is looking forward to the new panel's abilities after the system upgrade. New book, Seeking Collection, Seeking Recommendation Tickets. If you think it's okay, you can also invest in it. In addition, this book has already been signed internally, and before the status is modified, it will be updated twice. After the status is modified, it will be updated according to the situation. It is important to follow up on new books at the current starting point. Please do not keep it for now and try to read it every day. Thank you all. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Wand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Wand. Sitting in front of the new desk, Sean flipped through the notes he had taken from Gavin, frowning tighter as he rolled over. With a sigh, Sean closed his notes and reached out to pinch the bridge of his nose. This notebook records many of Gavin's conjectures and learning achievements during his school years. In terms of the knowledge content of the notes alone, it can be considered quite astonishing. After all, this notebook records most of Gavin's learning and research achievements from his youth to youth, but there is one biggest problem with this notebook. The content recorded in the notes is too profound, unsystematic, and can even be considered messy. When recording, it is likely that he will write down whatever comes to mind, because at that time, Gavin already had a strong knowledge of magic in his notes. He naturally knew what he was writing, and a concise writing would be enough. However, this makes it difficult for Sean to start researching notes, with numerous difficulties. In addition to the relatively simple ones mentioned earlier, he can still understand them. To understand the later ones, Sean may need to have a certain amount of magical knowledge in Hogwarts after systematic learning. Those other walkers can learn a lot of magic before going to school, and I can't even understand a single notebook. I am indeed a fake walker, right? I made a mistake for myself, and Sean temporarily closed his notes and prepared to go out. Yesterday, the owl at Hogwarts sent a letter confirming Sean's enrollment in Hogwarts. Sean didn't feel much about it, but his parents were very excited, as if they were the two of them preparing to go to Hogwarts for school. In fact, Sean also understands his parents' thoughts. They don't have magic, and their greatest desire from childhood to adulthood is to be able to enter Hogwarts. Now that he has received a letter from Hogwarts, he has indirectly fulfilled their wishes as a couple, which is why they are so excited. Change into clothes and come to the living room. Yad and Martha are already dressed and waiting at the door. It seems that they are even more eager than Sean. The Yade couple knew the location of Diagon Alley very well, so they didn't waste any effort and came to the Broken Cauldron bar. They went around and, with the help of the bar staff, entered Diagon Alley in the nearby alley. There are many people in Diagon Alley, and a large part of them are Muggle families who bring their children to purchase learning supplies. Of course, there are also some wizard families, but compared to Muggle families, they are much fewer. This is not to say that wizard families have fewer children than Muggle families, but many wizard families have prepared things for their children early on, just by some books before school starts. Shopping is an activity that can make people feel happy, even wizards are no exception. I went to Gringotts to exchange the gold tickets given by Gavin, and the family of 3 immediately immersed themselves in a happy shopping activity. Martha held the robe she had bought for Sean, and yet carried Sean's book. The family of 3 walked into the Ollivander wand store, which Sean was most looking forward to on this trip. The Ollivander wand store is located on the south side of Diagon Alley. From the outside, it appears to be a rundown and small shop. Through the window of the shop, one can see the densely packed wand boxes inside. As Sean and his family walked in at the same time, they immediately became a bit crowded. Standing in front of the counter, Sean coughed lightly and shouted softly, "Is anyone there?" "Good morning." An old man with bright eyes and slightly disheveled hair walked out of the store. He looked at a family of 3 standing in front of the counter and nodded in greeting before continuing in his soft voice, "Is Hogwarts' new student right?" "Yes, sir, I need a wand." "Of course, all the Hogwarts freshmen who come to me need a wand that suits them, don't they?" As he spoke, Ollivander took out something similar to an account book from under the counter, picked up a feather pen next to the counter, and asked, "When freshmen buy wands, they need to register and file. May I ask your name?" Sean Bird." Upon hearing the surname Bertrand, Ollivander looked up at Sean and then registered his name on the ledger-like object in front of him. "Please extend your usual hand." Ollivander took out a tape measure and measured the various data on Sean's right hand, as if making clothes, before finally taking out a slender box from the shelf behind him. Ollivander's wands are unique and cannot be replicated. Therefore, in order to find the most suitable wand for customers, Ollivander will measure their body data in detail, use it as a reference to select the most suitable wand for them. Witches entering Ollivander's wand store will always be able to find the most suitable wand for them. Sean watched as Ollivander opened the box and muttered a little, his mouth twitching slightly. "Even if I don't ask, I have to listen to these words once, right?" Self-deprecating and boasting about this skill has already been written deep into the soul of your Ollivander family. Silver linden tree and unicorn tail hair, 12 inches, are commonly used by wizards who possess exceptional talents in divination and memory magic. Taking out the wand from the box, as soon as he picked it up, Ollivander shook his head as if regretful. He took the wand back and put it back into the box, stuffing it onto the shelf behind him. No, it's not entirely suitable. We need to look for it again." Standing on the shelf and spinning twice, Ollivander climbed up a ladder and pulled out a dusty box at the top of the shelf. He walked down the ladder and wiped the dust off it, saying, "This should work. I think it should be suitable for you." The Blackthorn Lean Dragon Hearts, 11 3/4 inches, is a warrior's wand with great power. Those who use it will inevitably grow into powerful wizards. The second wand was held in Sean's hand and gently waved, causing the shelves to explode. Boxes of wands fell from the shattered shelves and scattered all over the ground. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and Sean carefully placed his wand in the box in front of Ollivander, quietly waiting for the next wand. Ollivander didn't take the damaged shelves to heart. He just looked at Sean, as if he had seen some interesting problem, and showed an excited smile. He grabbed Sean's right hand, carefully examined it, and murmured to himself, interesting, thoughtful. I like picky customers, and I can definitely find the right wand for you. Ollivander turned around and continued to search for the wand for Sean. At this moment, Sean looked around aimlessly. At that moment, a box of wands that had fallen on the edge of the counter caught Sean's attention. It was one of the many wands that had fallen off when the shelf exploded just now, and happened to fall not far from Sean's right hand. As if attracted in the dark, Sean instinctively reached out and grabbed the handle of the wand that had fallen out of the box. In that moment, a faint electric light overflowed from the tip of the wand, instantly burning the wand box. He gently waved the pitch-black wand, and strands of electric sparks traced a blue trajectory in front of Sean. This scene happened to be caught by Ollivander, who had just found a new wand and was preparing for Sean to try. Seeking collection, recommendation, and follow. Up. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. You Dare Not. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 4. You Dare Not. This is. In surprise, Ollivander put down his wand and came to Sean's face. He carefully examined the wand in Sean's hand and exclaimed in amazement. Mr. Ollivander, is there anything special about the wand in my hand? Magical, really amazing. This wand is made of ebony and phoenix tail feathers, 13 and 3/4 inches. It is suitable for any type of magic, but relatively speaking, it has a very large amplification effect on combat-type magic and transformation. As for what is special about this wand. Ollivander looked at Sean with a smile on his face and continued, this wand is the last one my father Ollivander made during his lifetime. The ebony and phoenix tail feathers used to make it are the highest quality materials that my father has preserved during his lifetime. The ebony uses the heart of an ancient ebony tree, and the phoenix tail feather that serves as the core of the wand also has a long history. It is a very picky wand and has never chosen any wizard as its owner. I thought it would never find its owner, but I didn't expect it to choose you. In the blink of an eye, Sean inexplicably felt that the image of Ollivander in front of him seemed to overlap with that of the old men and women who stood by the roadside selling heirlooms in their past lives. He made up his mind that if Ollivander the lion spoke loudly, he would throw away this wand and buy something else. He didn't believe that among so many wands, this one was suitable for him. With a light cough, Sean looked at Ollivander and said, so Mr. Ollivander, I wonder how much does this wand cost? It is very special and has a special meaning, but it is just a wand. In our Ollivander wand store, a wand is a wand, and its value is limited to the wand itself. Its additional meaning is not included in it, so there are a total of 11 crowns. Thank you for your patronage. Sean reached out and touched his nose. Every time he felt embarrassed, he instinctively made such a gesture. He happily paid and left the Ollivander wand store with his shiny pure black wand. Sean, what do we need to buy next? Upon hearing his father's words, Sean thought for a moment. The amount on the gold ticket that Gavin had given earlier was quite substantial. Although Gavin said it was the same treatment as children with magic in the peripheral organization of the family, the amount on the gold ticket was completely different, allowing Sean to buy more things he wanted. Taking out the purchase list, Sean glanced at the items on top and then looked up at the shops around him, saying, I also need a crucible, a set of stationery, and by the way, I'll buy a pet, an owl. Sean, I remember the list said only one pet can be brought, right? I'm planning to buy that owl for my family so that you can write to my grandmother. Additionally, you can use this owl to contact me. Even if you keep it in the dormitory, no one will mind if it comes from home. Yad and Martha are two very open-minded people, and the scholarship is given to Sean. Sean is naturally the one who decides how to spend it. The three of them bought a lot of things and just bought their pets and owls to go home. In fact, if it weren't for the fear that pets and owls would stay in cages for too long and become restless when following them around to buy things, Sean might choose to buy pets and owls first. After wandering for a long time, a family of 3 decided to take a temporary break and sit at the Florin cold drink shop on Diagon Alley, each ordering an ice cream to relax their tired bodies from crazy shopping. At this moment, peaceful and tranquil, the family of 3 is enjoying a comfortable time. "Father, you can't come to this Florin cold drink shop anymore. It's not in line with the noble status of pure blood to eat the same food as those inferior squibs." With a slight frown, Sean turned his head to look at the source of the discordant voice. It was a young man of his own age, dressed in a luxurious robe visible to the naked eye, and standing behind him was Quirrell, who had once met before. In this way, Sean immediately knew who the young man named his father was. If nothing unexpected happens, he should be Sean's cousin in blood, Millicent Bird. That's right, Quirrell had children earlier than Yad, and they were only 3 years apart. Quirrell got married and had children earlier, and the children he gave birth to were several months earlier than Sean's. Martha looked anxiously at Yad, who gently shook her hand to reassure her. At the same time, he looked at his own son and whispered, "There are some things that don't need to be debated with them. We just need to be ourselves." For Yad, as he said earlier, he never stopped since he was determined to be a mute when he was young, and it wasn't until he left the family as an adult that he slowly broke away from that environment. Now that his son has regained his magical abilities, he will inevitably re-enter the family in the future. In Yad's simple concept, he must not be enough to cause trouble for his son. Those guys just say one word and let them talk. It's just that Yad wants to calm things down, while Quirrell, who indulges his son, doesn't want to easily end this matter. Especially seeing his mute brother not saying a word, and his calm and composed demeanor makes Quirrell furious. Last time he followed his father to see Sean and was punished, his anger is still stuck in Quirrell's heart. When he meets Yad, he naturally wants to vent his anger. Hogwarts is really getting worse year by year. Every year, we use the money of our 20.8 families, but the result is that we cultivate so many despicable mud seeds and mute cannon sons to pollute the wizarding world. When Quirrell's words put the mute child and the mud seed together, there was no doubt that he had expressed his malice towards Sean. If it were just other words or just targeting himself, Yad could still treat it as if it had never happened. But now Quirrell is almost insulting Sean in person, using the most malicious words to insult his son, and Yad naturally cannot continue to endure it. Although his patience is for Sean's future, he cannot even protect his own son's present. How can he talk about the future? Suddenly standing up, Yad ignored Quirrell's hand touching the wand at his waist and approached Quirrell step by step. He whispered, "Quirrell, do you dare to pull out the wand? At the risk of being punished by Auror, the Ministry of Magic, and even his father outside, do you dare to use magic in a place full of Muggle parents?" Yad's words immediately stopped Quirrell from wanting to pull his wand, just as Yad said, he dared not. Seeing Quirrell's movements, Yad continued, "You can't take responsibility, so you dare not pull out your wand. But unlike you, I can take responsibility, so I dare to punch you." As he spoke, Yad punched Quirrell in the face. Seeking recommendation tickets, seeking collection, seeking follow-up reading, end of this chapter. Chapter 5. Panel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Panel. Yad has always had a sense of crisis. This sense of crisis comes from the anxiety of not having magic for oneself, especially when he has a wife and children. This anxiety of being powerless reaches its peak. As a mute canon who grew up in the magical world, he has seen various powerful and incredible magic, making him feel that without magic, he cannot protect his family. Therefore, Yad tries every way to make himself stronger. He crazily exercises himself and learns combat skills in his spare time, in order to protect his family when necessary. The punch just now hit Quirrell directly in the face, and this sudden attack knocked Quirrell down to the ground, leaving him in a semi-confused state. When Quirrell reacted, the shame of being knocked down turned into anger, quickly filling Quirrell's chest. Ignoring everything else, Quirrell reached out and pulled out his wand from his waist. But before he could align it, Yad immediately took a step forward, kicked Quirrell's wrist, kicked the wand out of his hand, and swung another punch, hitting Quirrell's stomach. With a painful cry, he curled up like a cooked shrimp. The pain left Quirrell's brain blank, making it impossible for him, who was already unfamiliar with wandless and silent casting, to even cast a single spell. Watching his usually dominant father being hit by a squib on the ground, Millicent's face froze with suspicion of life. But he quickly reacted and immediately pulled out his wand, pointing it at Yad, about to start reciting a spell. Thorns entangle. After reciting the spell for the most part, one hand suddenly blocked Millicent's mouth, preventing him from casting a spell on Yad. At the same time, a punch hit Millicent's stomach, causing him to fall to the ground like his father, howling in pain. Reaching out and taking away Millicent's wand, Sean pulled his own father, and the father and son immediately retreated. Quirrell, with a blue nose and swollen face, saw Yad retreat and quickly got up from the ground. He grabbed the wand that fell not far away and wanted to cast a spell on Yad. But at this moment, two figures appeared next to Quirrell and Millicent, father and son, blocking them from casting spells. Mr. Bertrand, casting a spell on someone without magic here, according to the laws of the Ministry of Magic, will result in imprisonment in Azkaban. Moreover, your father Mr. Bertrand may not allow you to cast a spell on someone without magic here, will he? This Auror's words calmed Quirrell down a bit. At this moment, he also understood that if he had really used magic on Yad, then what awaited him would inevitably be his father's punishment. Even if his father would use the power of the family to prevent him from entering Azkaban, the punishment he would receive on the family side would not be much more comfortable than entering Azkaban. To understand these things, even though Quirrell wished to kill the father and son of Yad and Sean 10 or 8 times in his heart, he had to put away his wand, say no more words, and leave the Florin cold drink shop with Millicent, who wanted to say something. As he watched Quirrell and Millicent leave, Sean knew that this matter was not over, but he didn't care. At this stage, as long as Quirrell didn't want to enter Azkaban, it was impossible for him to take action against his parents and himself at Hogwarts. If he wanted to take action, he had to wait until he graduated from Hogwarts. At that time, Sean was confident that he could completely protect himself. Quirrell and his son left, and the two Aurors also came to the Yed family and said, "3 of you, please abide by the laws of the wizarding world in Diagon Alley, so we won't disturb the 3 of you." As the words fell, the two Aurors left. As they walked out of the Florin cold drink shop, the younger and somewhat puzzled Aurora asked the older one, "Corey, why didn't we just give face to the heir of the Bertrand family? Is there any problem with offending him like this? Who do you think those 3 people were just now? Regarding the internal affairs of the Boster family, if you want to sell well, you may not be able to sell it. At this stage, the Boster family is still under the control of Mr. Boster, and if you want to sell it, you have to sell it to Mr. Boster. Do you understand? The internal affairs of the Bertrand family, this." Suddenly, the young Auror thought of a recent gossip about the Bertrand family. He immediately understood the meaning of his senior and didn't say much. Sean glanced at the 2 Aurors who had left. Just from their decisive handling of the matter and their demeanor, Sean could tell that they were absolutely elite, just like elite active duty soldiers among ordinary people, with a demeanor that ordinary people would not possess. These Aulua are probably not the kind of cheap goods in movies. Finally, looking in the direction where the 2 Aurors had left, Sean returned to his position, took a bite of slightly melted ice cream, and opened his own panel. When there was a conflict with Millicent just now, Sean found that his panel had a prompt, but he didn't have extra time to check at that time. Now that he has time, he naturally needs to take a closer look at what happened. Winning the duel, randomly select a dual object ability. Extracting. End of extraction, obtain. Thorn Curse. Seeing these 3 consecutive notifications, Sean raised his eyebrows lightly. Before upgrading the panel, Sean competed with others in school for exam results. After achieving better results and winning, he would like these notifications to obtain the corresponding knowledge of the other party's exam subjects. Nowadays, it seems that the ability of the panel has still been preserved, but it has been replaced with a magical version, and the exam has become a duel between both sides, making it feel more dangerous. Thinking of this, Sean continued to open his character panel. Sean Bird, occupation. Witcher apprentice, affiliated to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, skills. Luminous Curse, LV0, Thorn Curse, LV0, equipment. Blackwood Phoenix Wand. The Luminous Curse was a spell that Sean attempted to learn after obtaining Gavin's notes. He had never succeeded without a wand, but now that he saw the upgraded panel, Sean realized that he had already mastered this spell. It seems that as long as he holds the wand, this spell should be able to be used normally. Withdrawing the panel, Sean breathed a slight sigh of relief. With the help of the panel, he is more confident that he can establish himself in Hogwarts and even in the wizarding world in the future. People like Quirrell may be unbeatable to Sean right now, but with the help of the panel, Sean feels that as long as he reaches 5th or even 4th grade, he has confidence to fight against wizards like Quirrell, protect himself and protect his parents. Seeking collection, seeking recommended tickets, seeking follow-up reading, seeking investment. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Kurkan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Kurkan. After what happened just now, the family of 3 no longer had the interest to continue eating ice. Leaving the ice cream shop with things in hand, the 3 of them went to the Ayla Owl shop first. As it was for family use, they all made a choice. Sean wanted a snow owl. After all, it was really beautiful. Martha wanted a woolly owl, while Yed wanted a carved owl. In the end, the 3 of them guessed and Yad won, buying a carved owl named Rob. In Diagon Alley, owls and other pets are not sold together. The Ayla Owl shop specializes in selling owls, while other pets need to be purchased at the Magic Zoo, which has the vast majority of pets allowed for sale in the wizarding world. Therefore, the last stop of this trip to Diagon Alley is the most famous pet shop in the wizarding world, the Magic Zoo. Perhaps the shops in Diagon Alley all have similar characteristics. Like Ollivander's wand shop, the Magic Zoo is also quite crowded, with irregularly sized cages stacked together and filled with shops. Each cage contains an animal, and miraculously, these animals do not seem crowded or closed inside. Obviously, these cages have been enchanted. Welcome to the Magic Zoo, where you can find any pet you want. The owner of the Magical Zoo is a middle-aged female wizard, wearing a simple cotton robe with a slightly plump figure. When she saw the Sean family walking in, she immediately warmly welcomed them. Hello, I want to buy a pet, but I haven't figured out what to buy yet. Do you have any recommended pets to buy? The rich witch looked at Sean and nodded slightly, saying, Is Hogwarts a newcomer? Then you're not suitable for buying 2 troublesome pets, so I personally don't recommend pets that require a lot of activity, such as those that are too big or tail dogs. Therefore, I recommend that you purchase cats, mice, and reptiles, which can be kept internally in Hogwarts, but I'm not sure what type of pet you like. Sean listened to the rich witch's words and was about to see the cat when he suddenly saw a white shadow in the corner. He turned his head and was immediately drawn to the little one placed in the cage in the corner. So beautiful. This was Sean's first thought when he saw it. That pure white snake without any speckles. With a body length of about 1 meter, its thickness and curvature are just right, like a beautiful handicraft that brings joy to people. Especially its ruby-like eyes add a touch of charm. Even Sean, who has no preference for amphibians, was attracted to its beautiful appearance at first sight. The wealthy witch saw Sean's gaze and immediately understood. She smiled and shook her head, and came to Sean's side, saying, Its name is Kurkan. It was brought back by my husband 3 years ago when he went to America to search for a rare pet. It has to be said that it is really beautiful, but on par with its beautiful appearance, Kurkan also has one of the best bad-tempered pets in the store. It bit 5 people who wanted to keep it, including my husband, so I don't recommend you buy it. Kurkan is not something that a little wizard like you who is preparing to go to school can keep. Sean, let's change it. Didn't you say before that you wanted to keep a cat? Upon hearing his own mother's words, Sean hesitated a bit. As the wealthy witch had said, this snake was beautiful, but if it really had aggression, it would definitely not be able to be brought to Hogwarts for breeding. Shaking his head with a hint of regret, Sean prepared to go with the rich witch to see the cats here. But at this moment, Yad smiled and said to Sean, "Sean, since you like it, let's go take a look. Maybe you're the special one, but if you don't like it, it's okay. But since you like it, don't give up easily. At least go take a look at it, and you won't regret it." Sean was really taken aback by his father's words, but soon he smiled and walked over quickly. Squatting in front of the cage, Sean looked at the white snake Kurkan inside. Judging by its volume, Kurkan could clearly emerge from the cracks in the cage, but he remained inside honestly. Obviously, as Sean had guessed before, these cages did indeed have some magic inside. When White Snake Kurkan saw Sean approaching, he immediately curled up and looked up, his ruby-like eyes fixed on Sean. The forked snake's venom spewed rapidly, as if preparing to attack. Upon seeing this scene, Martha couldn't help but scream in surprise, and Yad's face also showed a look of regret. She wanted to speak up and make Sean give up. After all, encouraging her son to try is one thing. Seeing something impossible and potentially getting hurt is another thing. Seeing this scene, Sean naturally had the idea of giving up. Like Gu ran, but obviously unable to get it, and there is a possibility of injury, so there is no need to continue to force it. Just as Sean was about to get up and leave, a prompt suddenly appeared in front of him again. Kurkan challenges you. Will you start a duel? Sean looked at the prompt in front of him and looked in surprise at Kurkan in the cage. The ability to cause panel reactions illustrates 2 points. The first point is that dueling is not limited to humans. As long as it is a magical animal with intelligence, it can also trigger the panel to form a duel. The second point is that Kurkan is obviously not just an ordinary white snake with an appearance, it has at least the same level of intelligence as ordinary magical animals. What can I gain if I win the duel? When this question came to Sean's mind, he had already made a decision. Turning to look at the wealthy witch, Sean smiled and asked, "Excuse me, is this snake non-toxic?" The rich witch's face changed slightly, and she hesitated as she asked, "Do you want to come into contact with it?" Although it is indeed non-toxic, it does not mean that being bitten by it is nothing. Don't worry, as long as it is non-toxic, I will be responsible for any problems. Moreover, it is so small that as long as it is not toxic, biting me won't cause too much problem, it's just a bit painful. Sean, don't be impulsive. Martha came to Sean's side and looked at the white snake Kurkan with some concern. Yad saw this and squatted down beside Sean. He looked at Sean seriously and said, "Sean, are you sure?" Nodding, Sean said, "Of course, I'm pretty sure. Besides, I might not get bitten either. Let me give it a try." "Okay, if you get bitten, you can't scream for pain. Don't worry, it won't happen." The wealthy witch looked at Yad, who nodded at her. Although she didn't hesitate, she took out her wand and lightly tapped the cage. The cage immediately opened, and when she saw the white snake Kurkan open, she immediately let out a hissing sound of intimidation. We are currently going through the signing process, so please rest assured to collect, vote, invest, and follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Apology. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Apology. Sean gradually reached into the cage, not knowing how to win the challenge, but he shouldn't have let himself kill the opponent, otherwise it wouldn't be a challenge. As Sean's hand slowly approached, the vigilance of the white snake Kurkan also increased to its maximum. Just as Sean's hand was about to reach half the depth of the cage, Kurkan, like an arrow, immediately bit into Sean's hand that was already within his attack range. Kurkan's speed was extremely fast. Even though Sean had been prepared, he still couldn't avoid Kurkan's bite and was bitten on the back of his hand. Taking a cold breath, Sean gritted his teeth and instead of retreating, extended his other hand, directly gripping both sides of Kurkan's head. Kurkan rolled his body and wrapped it around Sean's wrist, biting the back of Sean's hand with his mouth becoming even tighter. Sean didn't exert any force, but continued to pinch Kurkan's head and suppress him. As time passed, a worried expression appeared on Yad and Martha's faces, and the wealthy witch couldn't help but want to speak up to stop Sean from continuing. Otherwise, if Sean's hand had a big problem, even if the other party didn't hold her responsible, she would still have a lot of trouble. Just as the three adults were preparing to intervene in this wrestling, a smile suddenly appeared on Sean's face. Winning the duel, randomly obtain a dual object ability. Extracting. End of extraction, obtain. Snake species affinity LV3. At the moment of obtaining the snake species affinity for LV3, Kurkan, who was originally biting Sean's hand, slowly released his mouth. He looked at the wound on Sean's hand and lightly rubbed his head against Sean's finger, expressing affection and apology. Sean reached out and gently caressed Kurkan's head, allowing Kurkan to crawl along his hand onto his shoulder, wrapping it around Sean's neck like a necklace, gently rubbing against Sean's cheek. Originally, Sean thought that he might gain the ability to speak in a snake-like manner if he achieved victory, but it was also good to have a snake-like affinity. Anyway, Sean only wanted a pet, and the snake-like thing was quite useless. Of course, having it is good, but not having it doesn't matter. In the future, finding more snakes to trigger a duel, or finding an opportunity to duel with Harry Potter a few more times, can always bring out the snake vibe. It's really surprising that you actually accepted it. The wealthy witch was originally planning to take action to separate Sean and Kurkan, but she never expected Sean to actually subdue Kurkan, a white snake that had been in the store for many years. Everyone brought Kurkan to the counter, and the wealthy witch used potions and magic to treat Sean's wound. When Sean and his family paid to leave the magical zoo, Sean's hand was left with only 4 dotted scars, which would disappear completely in no time. Reaching out to touch Kurkan's neck, Sean left Diagon Alley with his parents and returned home satisfied. Sean, have Rob and Kurkan both been fed? Upon hearing his busy mother in the kitchen, Sean, who was sitting at the dining table, replied, "Hey, Rob and Kurkan are both asleep. The journey from Diagon Alley to home is not close, and they are also tired. Okay, let's have dinner too." When Sean returned with Rob and Kurkan, he was afraid that these two little ones, an owl and a snake, would clash. As a result, these two little ones ignored each other. Rob, the big guy, may have looked down on Kurkan, who was not even close enough, so he didn't even pay attention to this white bug. Sean, Hogwarts starts school on September 1st, and it's only about half a month left. Have you prepared everything you need to bring? After taking a bite of my mom's roasted beef, Sean wiped his mouth and said, "It's ready. Mom, you don't have to worry. Even if I forget something, you can ask Rob to bring it to me. It's a carved owl that can carry heavy things." That's right, Hogwarts has a family of elves. I don't worry about your daily life, but you must have good relationships with others. Don't be like you did in regular school before. Hogwarts students all have magic, and you can't guarantee that they won't curse you behind your back. Although none of Sean's parents know magic, they are not muggles but squibs. They have lived in an environment with magic since childhood, and although they have never been to Hogwarts, they have some understanding of Hogwarts and the wizarding world. Many Muggle parents are worried about things, and Yad and Martha are not worried about them. However, many Muggle parents are not worried about things because they do not understand them, which are actually their two main concerns. After eating half of the dinner, Martha brought 3 desserts. Dessert is apple pie, which Sean wasn't used to at first, but as he grew older, he gradually developed some flavors and became his favorite dessert. Dang 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 dang. While eating pies, the window in the living room was suddenly knocked on. 3 people looked towards the living room window and saw a brown owl standing there, holding a palm-sized package on its feet. The wizard's owl. Who brought us the things? Yad stood up and opened the window. The brown owl immediately jumped in, allowing Yad to take off its paws. Just as Yad wanted to find something to eat and drink for the owl, it turned around and flew out of the window without lingering, quickly leaving Sean's house. You're really well trained. At this point, Sean had already guessed who had delivered the package, but he didn't directly explain, but let Yad open the package. The package was a palm-sized box, from which Yad took out a letter and a pure white pocket watch. When Sean saw the pure white pocket watch, he knew he had guessed right. The package was indeed sent by his grandfather Gavin. Yad looked at the letter in his hand with a slight frown, then handed it to Sean and said, "Sean, this is a package sent by your grandfather. You can also take a look at this letter." Since the outbreak of Sean's magic, Yad feels like his son has matured a lot, and his views on many things are quite mature. Therefore, Yad is also willing to share many things with Sean and listen to his thoughts. Sean didn't answer the letter, instead he took the pure white pocket watch. "I think the letter should be an apology from my grandfather for the previous incident in Diagon Alley, right? This pure white pocket watch should also be something my grandfather sent as a gift, right?" After a moment of confusion, Yad nodded slightly and said, "That's right, you're right. Okay, I know now. I have a clear idea about this pure white pocket watch, so I'll take it for now. Dad, you and Mom can rest assured. I'm just a child who hasn't even gone to Hogwarts yet. No matter what, my grandfather won't have any conspiracy against me. You can rest assured. Okay, as long as you have a plan in mind." Nodding at his own father and mother, Sean returned to the room with a pure white pocket watch. Not to mention anything else, this pure white pocket watch is truly a rare magical item. Sean almost thought that his grandfather really wanted to compensate him and his father. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Minor Conflicts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Minor Conflicts September 1st. At 10:30, the family arrived at King's Cross Station. Sean pushed the car to the third pillar between Platform 9 and Platform 10, where many officials from the Ministry of Magic were stationed to ensure that Muggles could not detect any abnormalities and that the young wizards could board the train smoothly. As time passed, Sean stood in front of the pillar talking to his father and mother. Although he mentioned that Hogwarts had a holiday to go home for Christmas, there were still several months left during this period, and the feeling of parting was still strong. A family of 3 chatted next to each other until Sean saw the red-haired family enter the middle pillar one after another before reaching Platform 9 and 3. Quarters. Then, a thin and short-looking boy with black hair and green pupils, wearing glasses, followed closely behind and walked into the pillar. He knew that time was running out and he needed to go in. "It's almost time, I'm going in," Sean said to his parents as he sorted out the things on the cart. Yad glanced at the time and knew it was time to part ways, but compared to Martha, he didn't feel too sad. He smiled and said to Sean, "Be careful on the way, follow Professor Hogwarts' arrangements. Remember to write more letters to us." Looking at the smiling father and the red-eyed mother, Sean hugged them and said, "I will write a letter, and you too can take advantage of this opportunity to surpass the world of 2. I really want to have a younger brother and sister." As the words fell, Sean took advantage of his father and mother's lack of reaction and immediately pushed the car into the pillar. As he entered the pillar, Sean seemed to hear laughter and scolding from his father and mother, smiled knowingly, and looked at the Hogwarts Express parked on the platform. Taking advantage of the available carriage, he pushed his bow and walked in. Putting away his luggage, Sean sat in the seat by the window. There was nothing to do, so he took out the Beginner's Guide to Metamorphosis and started reading it. Sean had read this book and other subject textbooks many times, and had memorized many things. However, there was no teacher around him to teach him. Sean didn't want to experiment at home, so he just did a few basic magic experiments. Among them, Sean's self-taught transformation technique has never been considered successful, so recently he has been studying the book, Beginner's Guide to Transformation. Perhaps it was the aura, or perhaps the carriage where Sean was sitting was at the end, and no one came to seek a seat in the carriage where Sean was sitting until the train started. Sean is quite happy about this. In the end, he is not a true 11-year-old child. His psychological age is not too young, and he prefers quietness. Having friends who can chat is good, and without him, he can spend 7 years on his own. Coincidentally, he does not want to be involved in the struggle between the savior and the noseless monster. The best result is being divided into Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, and being a little transparent is the best outcome. The train slowly accelerated, and the scenery outside the window gradually became lively. Accompanied by middle-aged salespeople pushing carts filled with snacks back and forth inside the train, the Hogwarts wizards inside also became active. After a while, 3 or 5 little wizards had already run past the carriage where Sean was located. Some little wizards saw Sean sitting in the carriage and expressed some thoughts they wanted to know, but when they saw the book in Sean's hand, they immediately retreated. For children of this age, books can really be considered quite scary things. So you're here. A voice filled with anger sounded at the door of the carriage. Sean lifted his head and looked at Millicent standing in front of the carriage. He raised his eyebrows lightly and said, "It seems like you intentionally searched for me inside the carriage. Why, what's wrong with you? Pure white pocket watch. Give me back my pure white pocket watch. I can pretend that things haven't happened before, otherwise I will make you pay the price." A mute kid, I really feel like I can become a member of the bird family. The words were not too polite, but Sean didn't mean it. Looking at Millicent's appearance, Sean knew that his behavior of coming to him was probably not inspired by anyone else, just out of a child's possessiveness and protective heart towards what should have belonged to him. As for this pure white pocket watch, something is good, but the meaning behind it is somewhat malicious. As one of the 20.8 pure blood families, the Bertrand family has a long history and broad relationships. Even if it cannot compare to the Malfoy family's position as the richest person in the wizarding world, it definitely has rich assets. For such a family, is it only the pure white pocket watch, a magical item that can be given to the family's descendants? Of course not. The only reason why Gavin, the head of the Bertrand family, gave himself a pure white pocket watch under the guise of apology, was that the pure white pocket watch was originally intended for Millicent. As for Gavin's idea, it is likely that he wants to be the object of inspiration for Millicent, and secondly, he wants to ease his relationship with the family, which has been passed down for many years as a means of the big family. However, even if he knew this, Sean had no intention of giving it to Millicent. This pure white pocket watch had a good effect, and Sean had no intention of handing it over. "I can't give you something. It was my grandfather who gave it to me, and you should know that too." Millicent looked at Sean, his eyelids slightly drooping. Pure blood had such great power since birth, and because of this, they knew more and had more courage. Looking at Sean, who turned to continue reading, he felt that he could completely control the mute son and calmly take the pure white pocket watch. As long as he was not injured, even if someone found out about it, it was just a small matter. Thinking of this, Millicent suddenly pulled out his wand from his body and aimed it at Sean, ready to cast a spell. But at this moment, Millicent was shocked to find that Sean had already pulled out his wand, and the tip of the wand pointing towards him had already shimmered with light. All petrified. The grayish-white light instantly spread throughout Millicent's body, transforming him into a statue and slowly falling to the ground. This sudden change immediately caught the attention of others, and soon a senior student rushed over. They immediately lifted the petrification curse on Millicent's body. When the spell was lifted, Millicent immediately jumped up from the ground, holding up his wand and about to cast a spell on Sean, while shouting loudly, "You damn son of a squib, I want to show you." Millicent's movements were stopped by the senior students, and just as he was about to say something, he suddenly saw a familiar person. He immediately swallowed the unfinished words and stood on the side honestly. When the other party arrived at his side, Millicent timidly said, "Oh, Oliver, why did you come?" End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Oliver Twist. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Oliver Twist. For pure blood wizards, the object of marriage is naturally also pure blood. Therefore, in history, 20.8 pure blood families often intermarried with each other, which led to many pure blood families having some degree of kinship, and the Bertrand family was no exception. Oliver Foley came from the Foley family and is one of the 20.8 pure-blooded families. Oliver's father is now the head of the Foley family, and he is also the brother of Millicent's mother. Oliver's mother originally came from the Bertrand family and was the sister of Yad and Borel. In other words, Oliver and Millicent have a very close blood relationship. Even if they are not biological brothers, they are not much different. This also makes Oliver take Millicent with him from a young age. Apart from his grandfather and parents, Millicent is most afraid of this cousin because he has received Millicent's parents' permission and can really punish him. Sean naturally didn't know about the relationship between Oliver and Millicent, and even if he did, he didn't have much time to care about it now. Because after the previous move against Millicent, the panel once again determined that the duel with the opponent had won. Winning the duel, randomly select a duel object ability. Extracting. End of extraction, obtain. Thorn Curse. Sean once again obtained the evil curse Thorn Curse that Millicent had learned, and at the same time, on the panel, the entry that originally belonged to Thorn Curse was officially changed from LV0 to LV1. Information about this small evil curse, as well as relevant knowledge that met the LV1 level, came to Sean's mind. Originally, drawing existing magic again can increase the level of magic. Just as Sean was delighted with his new discovery after upgrading the panel, a figure suddenly fell in front of him. "Hello, my name is Oliver, Oliver. You can call me by my name directly. Also, in terms of blood relationship, my mother is your father's sister, which is your aunt, so strictly speaking, we are cousins." Sean lifted his head and looked at Oliver standing beside him. This is a very handsome person with sharp facial features and slightly curled hair like gold. This is also a quite dominant person. Although he talks with a smile on his face, he keeps staring into Sean's eyes, just like a falcon staring at prey. People with a slightly weaker heart can't help but move their eyes, and their momentum weakens him. Looking at Oliver slightly, Sean smiled and said, "My name is Sean, Sean Bird. Do you need me to call you cousin?" Oliver frowned slightly, obviously not very satisfied with the title of cousin. He looked at Sean and said directly, "As blood brothers, I have always believed that we should not have conflicts. For example, the pure white pocket watch in your hand was originally reserved for Millicent. Perhaps something unexpected happened that led to you getting it, but I think, for the unity of blood brothers, please hand over the pure white pocket watch and return it to Millicent." "Sure, no problem." As he spoke, Sean took out the pure white pocket watch from his body and placed it on the table to his right. Millicent, who was standing at the door, couldn't help but come up and reach out to hold it in his hand. But before he touched the pure white pocket watch, Sean continued, "However, after all, this thing was given to me by my grandfather, so according to logic, it must be approved by my grandfather. As long as my grandfather says it's okay, then I can give you this pure white pocket watch." As the words fell, Millicent's hand stopped in front of the pure white pocket watch. Millicent looked at Oliver, who was holding onto his wrist, with a surprised expression on his face. In his opinion, what Sean had just said was nonsense. He just needed to hold the pure white pocket watch in his hand, and other things could be discussed later. I don't think his grandfather would do anything to him either. Oliver naturally saw the puzzled expression on Millicent's face, but he didn't explain anything. Instead, he continued to Sean, "Sean, this is already your thing, isn't it? You should be able to make your own decisions on who you entrust it to." "You're right. As long as my grandfather allows me, I'll give you the pure white pocket watch." "Sean, you." Before Oliver could finish his sentence, he saw Sean smiling at him and repeating, "As long as my grandfather allows me, I'll give you the pure white pocket watch right away." Oliver's expression finally darkened, and now he understood that Sean was not a kid anymore. Perhaps it was due to the bloodline of the Bertrand family, or the example of the mute uncle. His cousin Sean was even purer than some heirs of pure blood families, extremely difficult to deal with. If his father were not a mute canon, it would be great. Oliver would definitely choose to befriend him. Unfortunately, both of his parents were mute canon, so they could not become the heirs of the Bertrand family. In this way, combined with today's events, they could only become enemies. After gesturing for Millicent, Oliver nodded slightly and said to Sean, "I understand what you mean. I hope you will have a pleasant time at Hogwarts in the future." Undoubtedly, Oliver's statement is a threat. However, for Sean, he wouldn't be afraid of anything because of this. Leaving aside the fact that his parents, like him, are mute, it's basically impossible for him to enter Slytherin. Even if he has the qualifications to enter Slytherin due to the Bertrand family bloodline, as long as he firmly opposes joining Slytherin like everyone else. Based on Sean's understanding of the Sorting Hat in his past life, this guy is still very talkative. Oliver, as the prefect, naturally cannot openly violate Hogwarts discipline, especially since he has seen the prefects of Gryffindor and Hufflepuff rushing over. He cannot use any means. Although Millicent was not willing to accept it, he was not really a fool. When he saw Oliver leaving with his people, he followed him out of the carriage. However, when he left the carriage, he gave Sean a fierce glare before turning around and leaving. Seeing nothing happening here, the others also left one after another. The carriage returned to quietness, and Sean also stretched lazily, continuing to lower his head to read. In fact, a pure white pocket watch is just an ordinary magical item, and it doesn't matter if Sean hands it over in order to study quietly at Hogwarts in the future. However, this magical item is really extraordinary, and in critical moments, it can even save his life. Naturally, he cannot hand it over. Pure white pocket watch. A magical item that allows the user to actively reverse the damage when fatally injured, restoring the owner's body to its pre-injury state, once every 7 days. Proactively using the timer function, pressing the button on the pocket watch can bring the user's body back to the timed state, once a day. Seeking collection, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, and follow-up reading are the most important. The current rule is that follow-up reading determines the recommended position for the new book period. If you think the book is still good, please do not keep it for now. Please continue reading. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Ferry and Harry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Ferry and Harry. The train stopped at the station, and according to a sound guided by a loudspeaker, the freshmen changed into their robes, held their wands, and without any luggage, got off the train and followed the tall Hagrid out of the station, walking towards the lake. The journey was relatively smooth, but because the sky was already dim and the humidity near the lake was heavy, the little wizards were all very cold. They huddled in line and arrived at the dock one by one. Sean stood in the crowd, and it was obvious that Millicent was mixing with Malfoy, Pansy, and the others. These little guys were all from the pure blood family, and they were all supporters of pure blood, with the same odor. Standing together was not strange, but just as Sean looked at them, Malfoy and the others turned their heads to look at Sean. Seeing Sean also observing them, Malfoy sneered. Although he didn't speak, the meaning behind it was already clear. After a little physical activity, Sean prepared to wait quietly for the ship to arrive. There were not many new students at Hogwarts, and it wasn't long before it was Sean's turn to board. Everyone should be aware that each ship can accommodate up to 4 people. If you see enough people, don't board, otherwise falling into the lake and freezing will be bad. Sean was the first to board the boat. As soon as he sat down, he suddenly let out a scream from behind, and then a head hit Sean's back, causing him to stumble and almost fall into the lake. Just as Sean was about to see who the person behind him was, Hagrid's rough voice immediately sounded and he said, "Harry, how are you? Is there anything wrong?" The person who bumped into Sean stood up straight, nodded apologetically at Sean, and then said to Hagrid, "I'm fine, Hagrid. I accidentally stumbled just now, I'm fine. Harry, be careful not to fall into the water." "Okay, Hagrid, I got it." Harry rubbed his head, turned to look at Sean, and apologetically said, "Sorry, I stumbled just now and accidentally bumped into you. Are you okay?" Looking at Harry apologizing to himself and Ron running onto the ship, Sean was still thinking about when he would be able to see the Son of Destiny in this world. He didn't expect to see him so soon. Shaking his head gently, Sean said, "I'm fine, I just bumped into it and it didn't matter. On the contrary, it's you guys. Be careful not to fall into the water." "Thank you. Well, nice to meet you. My name is Harry, what's your name?" Harry Potter, who has just entered the wizarding world, is still very pure. Although he has also seen pure blood trash like Malfoy, when he sees Sean, who treats people kindly, and he shares the same boat, he also wants to get to know him. "You can call me Sean." For Harry, Sean had no intention of getting to know him deeply. His years at Hogwarts were probably the most unexpected period in the past few decades, or even hundreds of years. Being close to him would inevitably lead to an extremely dangerous situation. Being a nodding acquaintance made Sean feel very well. "My name is Ron. I just saw Malfoy staring at you. Did you provoke him?" The Weasley and Malfoy families are both pure-blooded families, but their positions can be said to be vastly different. Naturally, Ron and Malfoy, who are of the same age, also have a strong hatred towards each other. Previously, Ron saw Malfoy unleashing malice towards Sean and wanted to inquire about this matter. "I don't know, maybe he thinks my parents are both dumbbells, so he looks down on me a bit." Ron's face showed surprise. He saw Sean so calm and didn't look around like the others, thinking that his parents were both wizards. Looking at Ron's surprised expression, Harry looked at him with some confusion and asked, "Sean, what is a squib?" After a moment of contemplation, Sean replied, "Simply put, a squib is a derogatory term aimed at descendants from wizarding families who do not have magic. However, for wizards in the wizarding world, the term squib is normal and they do not consider it a derogatory term. Of course, it is also possible that these people from wizarding families who do not have magic should deserve such a term. There are only a few wizards in the wizarding world who can truly view people without magic with an equal perspective. In fact, the vast majority of wizards feel from the bottom of their hearts that they are superior to those who do not have magic. Perhaps many people are not as hostile to people without magic as pure blood, but they have some degree of disdain for those without magic, which is true. Sean looked at Harry, who was lost in thought, and Ron, who was clearly startled by Sean's words. He didn't say anything more, but sat quietly on the small boat that had already set sail, heading towards Hogwarts Castle. Small boats hanging oil lamps docked one after another at the dock at the bottom of Hogwarts by the lake. The freshmen boarded the dock under Hagrid's leadership, climbed up the slightly slippery stairs through the small boat house, and arrived at the waiting hall of the branch through the entrance hall. Here, they saw a serious witch standing on the stairs, like the most serious teacher in every school, instantly silencing the chattering freshmen and quietly waiting for the witch to speak. "Welcome to Hogwarts, you can call me Professor McGonagall. The banquet is about to take place, and before the start of the school banquet, you will be assigned to 4 colleges: Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, and Slytherin." With that in mind, Professor McGonagall glanced at the somewhat disheveled students and paused before continuing, "Before the separation ceremony, you have time to tidy up your appearance here. Professor McGonagall was clearly not a talkative person. He just explained the main issue and turned to prepare for the branch ceremony. The little wizards waiting here also started to make noise again. Sean stood beside Harry and Ron, listening to Ron croaking, and glanced at Neville holding a toad not far away. He vaguely remembered that when Professor McGonagall spoke earlier, Neville should have found his lost pet toad, but it didn't happen just now, and the toad is now in Neville's arms. Did it cause any changes because there was an additional me among the freshmen at Hogwarts? Some things have changed, while others still happen. What changed was Neville's toad, and what still happened was Harry's first conflict with Malfoy, but this conflict also brought Sean, a foodie, into Malfoy's mockery. The future update times will remain stable at 11 o'clock a.m. and 11:30 a.m., and we will continue to follow up on reading. End of this chapter.